From the Blues Hotel Collective, welcome to Blues Moments in Time, where every groove holds a memory and every moment echoes the truth of what came before. Today, we rewind the reel, trace the footsteps, and revisit the chapters that shaped the blues. Here is our host, Kelvin Huggins.
Welcome to Blues Moments in Time, the podcast dedicated to exploring the rich history and the cultural significance of blues music. Today is February 26, and as we'll discover, it's a date on which American music was both born and betrayed, celebrated and complicated. Let's get into it. Let's begin with the cultural landscape. February 26, 1917, a recording studio in New York City. 5 white musicians from New Orleans set up their instruments and play a number called Livery Stable Blues, a rollicking improvised tune in which a clarinet mimics a rooster and a cornet mimics a horse. It gets cut to disc by Victor Records, pressed in the thousands and shipped across the country. It sells 1 million copies, and history books duly record it as the first jazz recording ever made. But here's what those history books too often leave out. The music wasn't invented in that studio. It was born in the streets and honky-tonks and Creole cottages of New Orleans, built on African-American blues, African-American improvisation, African-American rhythm. Black musicians had been playing this music for decades. The original Dixieland jazz band learned it from them, absorbed it, and then walked through a studio door that was not open to their black peers. The first jazz record is, in that sense, also the first documented case of what would become an industrial scale pattern. Black artists create the music, white artists and white-owned labels record it and profit from it. That injustice would fuel decades of legal battles, creative migrations, and ultimately the emergence of independent race records labels that finally gave blues and jazz artists their own platform, in their own voices. Now let's turn to the political climate. 48 years before that studio session, on February 26, 1869, the United States Congress passed the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, declaring that no citizen could be denied the right to vote on account of race, colour, or previous condition of servitude. On paper, it was a revolution. In the years that followed, it was systematically strangled. Poll taxes, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, and when all else failed, outright terror. Black political power was crushed across the South in the decades following Reconstruction, leaving behind communities of poverty, landliness, and repression. From those communities, from the sharecroppers and levee workers and chain gangs of the Mississippi Delta, the blues was born. Every time a Delta bluesman sang about hard times, about broken promises, about the long road north, he was singing about the gap between the 15th Amendment promise and what life actually delivered. Of course, no discussion of blues history would be complete without exploring the music itself. We've already spoken about the 1917 recording of Livery Stable Blues as a cultural moment. As a purely musical moment, it matters enormously also. It opened the door to commercial recordings of blues-inflected music, and within a few years, the race records industry was born, and with it, the first recordings of the actual progenitors of the blues, Mamie Smith, Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith. The music that started in New Orleans eventually made it onto records in its authentic form. February 26, 1917 is where the commercial chain begins, for better and for worse. This date also marks the birth of several influential blues figures. Born on February 26, 1928 in New Orleans, that's Domino, the man with the rolling left hand and the warm, unshakable smile. Fats grew up in the city that invented the blues, jazz, R&B gumbo, and he cooked it better than almost anyone. His 1949 debut, The Fat Man, is considered by many to be one of the very first rock and roll records, built on blues, boogie, and New Orleans rhythm. By the time he was done, he had sold 65 million records and earned the grudging tribute from Elvis Presley himself, who called Fats the real king of rock and roll. He never left New Orleans, even when the floodwaters came. He was 89 when he died in 2017, and the music he left behind is as warm and alive as he was. And born on the same date in 1943 in California, Bob the Bear Hite, co-lead vocalist and founding member of Canned Heat. The Bear was a blues fanatic and a record collector before he was a rock star, and he brought that encyclopedic love of the Delta and Chicago blues to everything Canned Heat did. When they played Woodstock in 1969 and Going Up the Country floated over that crowd of 500,000 people, it wasn't just a rock anthem, it was a Delta blues melody, reaching an audience that had never heard of Henry Thomas, the man who originally played it 40 years before. The Bear died far too young at just 38 in 1981. And finally, we remember those who we lost on this date. On February 26, 1977, blues music lost one of its great originals, Bukka White. Born Booker T. Washington White, somewhere in the Mississippi Delta around 1909, died of cancer in Memphis. His slide guitar work was ferocious and beautiful. His voice carried the full weight of a life lived hard. He recorded Parchment Farm Blues about the prison farm where he was incarcerated. He recorded Fixin' to Die Blues, a song so powerful that Bob Dylan covered it on his very first album. Bukka White was also the cousin of B.B. King, and it was Bukka that a teenage B.B. hitchhiked to Memphis to find in 1947, sleeping on his floor, listening to him play, absorbing everything. Bukka was rediscovered in the 1960s by fans who found him through a postcard, still alive and still playing. He performed for a new generation that finally understood his greatness. He was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in 1990, and he deserves to be remembered not just as B.B. King's cousin, but as the raw, untamed original that he was. And that's all the time that we have for today's episode of Blues Moments in Time. February 26 gives us the blues at its most complicated, a date of musical firsts, political promises, extraordinary births and irreplaceable losses. The thread running through all of it is the same one that runs through the blues itself, the distance between what should be and what is, and the music people make in that gap. Join us next time as we continue to explore the fascinating history of the blues.